Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Meng Zihang. Coming up in this edition, Lebanon's caretaker prime minister says the country will uphold the ceasefire with Israel. Rebels claim control of Goma in the DRC, forcing thousands to flee. And China is buzzing with festive energy as the Year of the Snake approaches in 2 days. We begin in the Middle East. Lebanese caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati says his country will continue to adhere to the ceasefire agreement with Israel until the new deadline of February the 18th. On Sunday, the US announced the extension of the ceasefire agreement into next month, despite Israel's failure to withdraw troops from Lebanon by the previous deadline of January the 26th. Health officials in Lebanon say Israeli forces killed 22 people in the country's south on Sunday as they tried to return to their homes. Meanwhile, residents in Israeli border towns are worried about safety due to their country's clashes with Hamas and Hezbollah. Evacuations have left many towns deserted. Mikhail Bardvid has more details.
This town of Kiryat Shmona used to be home to around 25,000 people, but over the past year and a half, almost everyone fled due to the intense fighting between Israel and Hezbollah militants in Lebanon. Even now, despite an ongoing ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah, this place still feels like a ghost town. While many businesses have shut down, several restaurants have stayed open. The roads, quiet. Children's parks, empty. While most of the people here were transferred to hotels scattered around the country, some defied the relocations and stayed.
This isn't a place where we can be afraid. At no point during the war was this a good place to be afraid. I can say that I myself wasn't afraid. For me personally, the only thing I am afraid of is terrorists. But there weren't any here. Missiles are missiles, yet all of them have their own destiny to follow.
But after the ceasefire deal, some locals have started to return. Some are returning because they have faith in the deal, others out of necessity.
I returned to Kiryat Shmona 2 weeks ago. I used to work at a supermarket, but I've lost my job because of the war. I've also returned because I don't have any other option, because I'm unemployed. And it's still frightening. It's like living in fear every day, that on October 7th might also happen here.
The ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas is still fragile and complicated, with the second stage of negotiations yet to begin. But if it holds, many more people are likely to return and perhaps finally find peace.
That was Mikhail Bardvid reporting. Meantime, the Qatari Foreign Ministry says Hamas will release 3 hostages before Friday, including female civilian Abel Yehud. Israel previously refused to allow the return of hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians to northern Gaza unless Yehud was released. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office warned that Israel will not tolerate any violations of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. Qatar has confirmed that Israel will allow residents of northern Gaza to return home starting Monday. As Rami Al-Maghari reports, many displaced Palestinians are waiting for permission to return home. Here's the report from Gaza.
Thousands of displaced Palestinians had hoped to return to the northern Gaza Strip this weekend, but the Israeli army did not withdraw from the area. Israel accused Hamas of breaching the ceasefire agreement. The Palestinians waited for long hours at an Israeli military barrier in Wadi Gaza, trying to cross a coastal road.
I have been waiting here since yesterday, with my family and children. We slept in the street in order to return. Even though our homes were destroyed and many were killed and some are still missing, we are determined to return, and we will return.
Amjad Sabah had dismantled his tent, packed his blankets and family belongings, and loaded them onto his car in preparation to get back to his destroyed home in Gaza. He told CGTN, "It's a helpless feeling."
Since 4 a.m., we have been standing here waiting to return to our lands in northern Beit Lahia. I carried my tent with me to set it up there because my home was destroyed. We have spent our whole lives suffering. That is enough. Our children are homeless in the cold, and no one cares about us.
The Israeli government is demanding the release of Israeli female civilian hostage Arbel Yehud. Hamas says she will be released next weekend. Israel says the suspension of its withdrawal from the Netzarim corridor will remain in place until the crisis is resolved by mediators.
This is part of the ongoing conflict of wills between Hamas and Israel, especially after the military parades carried out by the Qassam brigades during the last operation to hand over Israeli female prisoners.
On Saturday, Hamas freed 4 female Israeli soldiers in exchange for 200 Palestinian prisoners. Meanwhile, Gazans are spending another night in the street waiting. Hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians are disappointed as they await a return back home. Meanwhile, mediators in Egypt and Doha are reportedly meeting to hammer out a solution.
That was Rami Al-Magari reporting from Gaza. Israel has released 200 Palestinian prisoners after Hamas freed 4 female Israeli soldiers. Some of the Palestinian prisoners arrived in Gaza and the West Bank on the weekend, greeted by families and crowds celebrating in the streets. Huang Yue has details.
Thousands of people flooded the streets of Gaza as Palestinian prisoners released by Israel were brought in by Red Cross vehicles.
This is the greatest victory and joy for the Palestinian people, despite the pain, death, hunger, and genocide. It is the greatest joy for the people of Palestine. This is a cry from the sister of a prisoner who has been imprisoned for 17 years. There is no greater joy than this.
We were dreaming that this day would come without destruction and war. We waited for the deal to be completed for many years, day by day and month by month.
After this war, destruction and sacrifices, thank God I was able to see my family well and reassure myself about them. 11 years of abstinence is something that cannot be described. I feel like I'm in a situation that was imaginary at one point.
In the West Bank city of Ramallah, Red Cross buses carrying released Palestinian prisoners struggle to move through streets packed with people.
My feeling is indescribable. Thank God and thank you to our people in the Gaza Strip. The prisoners inside the Israeli prisons are in torment. I lost 15 kilograms.
Until now, I feel like I'm still in an unbelievable dream. I thank God for getting out of the grave in which I was buried for 23 years. I send my greetings to our people in the Gaza Strip, and we hope that conditions will improve.
I extend my greetings and thanks to all the people here in the West Bank and the Arab and Islamic world, and I thank the men of the resistance.
More than half of the 200 Palestinian prisoners released in this round were serving life sentences in Israeli prisons. Israel says around 70 of the detainees had committed serious offenses and would be sent into exile through Egypt to neighboring countries.
That was Huang Yue reporting. Turning to Africa, rebels claim they have seized Goma, the largest city in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, after a rapid advance forced thousands to flee. The DRC has recalled its embassy staff from Rwanda, accusing Kigali of supporting the M23 rebels. Rwanda has denied the allegations. The UN Security Council has convened a meeting to address fears of the conflict spreading and worsening one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises. Poppy Maputin has more.
The ongoing fighting in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has reached a critical juncture in recent days as UN peacekeepers were caught in the crossfire of fighting between the Congolese army and M23 rebels. Now, the rebels have been active in the region in the past month, taking major towns and displacing thousands of people. In recent days, they've encircled the major regional capital of Goma. 200 civilians have been killed and hospitals are overrun with the injured. The United Nations moved up a meeting requested by the DRC to Sunday, holding an emergency session as a result of recent developments, including the DRC severing diplomatic ties with Rwanda. Both countries were represented at the meeting Sunday. Here's what they had to say.
The RDF and the M23 have established a parallel administration, exploiting our resources and imposing their control on local populations with complete impunity. These activities must be punished.
In violation of the ceasefire, the FARDC decided to intensify its military operation by attacking the positions of the M23, which retaliated and took more territories. Unfortunately, we regret that the international community chose to condemn the M23 for extending its territories without condemning FARDC military coalition for violating the ceasefire. The ceasefire was between all the warring parties, so all warring parties should have observed it.
The UN is relocating non-essential staff, pulling them out of Goma as a result of the violence. French President Emmanuel Macron on Saturday spoke with leaders of both DRC and Rwanda to demand an immediate cessation of the conflict. M23 rebels have caused destabilization in the region since at least 2002, an offshoot of the Congolese army that came into being a decade ago, ostensibly to protect the Tutsi minority in the region. In recent years, however, they have been accused of looting the region that is mineral rich with minerals such as cobalt and gold. Rwanda has been accused by the DRC and UN of arming the M23 rebels, which it denies.
That was Poppy Maputin reporting. Thousands of residents in Goma have fled due to the M23 rebel threat, but many like Chibalonza Habimana have stayed because they have nowhere else to go. The ongoing fighting between the Congolese army and M23 rebels have disrupted her life. Her children can no longer attend school and her work has stopped.
We haven't slept in 3 days. We stay indoors hearing explosions day and night. We see others fleeing, but we can't. There's nowhere for us to go.
In recent weeks, the M23 rebels have made significant gains near the Rwandan border, moving closer to Goma, a city of about 2 million people and a key hub for security and aid efforts. Congo, the US and the UN experts accuse Rwanda of supporting the M23, a mainly Tutsi group that split from the Congolese army over a decade ago. The region, rich in minerals, has been a hotspot for more than 100 armed groups, contributing to one of the world's largest humanitarian crises. In the Americas, the White House says Washington will put its proposed tariffs and sanctions on Colombia on hold after the South American country accepted US President Donald Trump's terms. Colombia earlier announced retaliatory 25% tariffs on all US imports, countering Trump's similar move because of immigration issues. Colombia now says it will receive citizens deported from the US, but will make sure they are treated with dignity. Data shows that 11 million undocumented people live in the US, with the Latino immigrants making up the largest proportion. Alastair Baverstock has more.
Colombia blocked these military flights carrying deportees and refused them to allow them to land in the country, citing that the deportees need to be treated with dignity and respect if Colombia is going to engage with the United States on this mass deportation issue. They were immediately hit with a barrage from Trump, 25% tariffs on all Colombian exports, as well as visas from the Colombian government officials revoked with immediate effect, and threats of 50% tariffs if the situation isn't sorted out within a week. So it's a bold move here from both countries, both on Colombia's part for standing up to Trump, but also what we're seeing is the United States trying to make an example of Colombia specifically, which has traditionally been a really important partner of the United States in the South American continent. Imagine you have Venezuela on one side and Ecuador on the other. Colombia has been traditionally very friendly to the United States, so a big reaction here from the Latinos towards Trump just after his first week. We certainly expect to see Latinos in the United States impacted, and that's something which I've been seeing and witnessing while I've been here.
Chula Vista, California, just 20 kilometers from the border with Mexico, is home to a large Latino community. Normally a bustling commercial town, things have looked rather different over the past week.
It's a ghost town.
Chula Vista residents Hope Perez and her husband say US President Donald Trump's threats of countrywide mass deportations have terrified the locals.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just don't want to even go out to the grocery store or anything because they're that afraid. The raids are getting cut. But yes, I've seen a lot of change, and it's going to even get worse.
It's not only here. Communities throughout California are nervous about immigration raids.
While California has long been a so-called sanctuary state for undocumented immigrants to America, the Latino community here is nevertheless on edge. In San Diego County, residents say they've noted a marked change in the atmosphere since President Trump took office.
It's a fear impacting the Latino community in the US as a whole, documented and undocumented alike. One business owner here, who preferred to remain anonymous, says the local economy is struggling as a result.
Normally on the weekend, we would have 5 or 6 families sitting here eating. But look, there's no one. So of course it has affected us. We don't know what to expect from the future.
California may be a sanctuary state, meaning local and state authorities protect undocumented migrants from deportation and prosecution, but Trump's policy has divided opinion across communities. Further north up the coast, the city of Huntington Beach recently declared itself a non-sanctuary city, indicating it would cooperate with Trump's immigration raids, irritating its Latino residents.
We're the ones doing all the hard labor. I have a landscaping business, and I rely on hard workers, and I'm sorry, but it ain't the white American folks digging trenches for me and digging holes for $25 an hour. They're not doing it. I think a lot of businesses are going to struggle, and we're really going to see changes.
As America's undocumented face an uncertain future, many here say the next 4 years, more than ever before, will be about remaining under the radar.
That was Alistair Baverstock reporting. And finally, in Asia, there's a festive mood all across China as people will usher in the Year of the Snake in less than 2 days. People have held various celebrations in different parts of the country to welcome Spring Festival. The activities include singing, dragon or lion dancing, and lantern shows. The Chinese Lunar New Year begins on Wednesday. And meanwhile, Spring Festival celebrations are in full swing in Sichuan. The southwestern Chinese province is known for panda conservation and spicy cuisine. Xu Xinchen has more from the capital city, Chengdu.
The celebration is already on across China, of course here in Chengdu, southwest China as well. Famous for its panda culture and spicy food. I am already in my red clothes and also my new body here, fully dressed for the celebrations. So I am at a location in the city is the Tianfu International Conference Center. It's already decorated. It has an outdoor markets, and among those outdoor markets, a lot of them are showing some local folk arts or traditions. For example, paper cutting, bamboo waving. Some of them are, as we know, nationally recognized intangible cultural heritage here in China. And a performance will be delivered on the square that I'm standing here in front of the convention center. It will include dances from the community. A lot of them are retired local people. And also, some of the performances are, as we know, like iron water splashes, and that performance will continue till the second day of the new year. And for the outdoor market, it will stretch across the Spring Festival. And a Baba Yan is also held here near this center. A Baba Yan is a local tradition that is a massive feast of hundreds of people. It's often held for special occasions like the Spring Festival. So the Spring Festival, of course, is about a family reunion. The highlight is, of course, the reunion feast. And in the city, across Chengdu, there will be temple fair. There will be lantern shows. So lanterns from this part of China is very famous, from a city called Zigong. That's a intangible cultural heritage. So a lot of fun activities. But it's not just about traditions. And here that today I've been spending the whole afternoon here just hanging around. I saw like robotic dogs sending out New Year wishes to visitors or not. So it's a really celebration of old and new, really making the New Year truly special.
That was Xu Xinchen reporting. The festive atmosphere also extends to Jiangyuan, a garden in Shanghai. The garden is known as the city's largest compound with special architecture called Shigumen, meaning Stowe Warehouse Gate. Chen Tong visited the garden to find out more.
It used to be a residential compound, but in 2022, it turned into a commercial complex. So all types of restaurants, stores are opened here. And during the Spring Festival, all of these stores will be offering special discounts to welcome the tourists. And not only these special promotions, during the Spring Festival, you are going to see dragon dance and also do paper cutting and even enjoy the 8 treasure rice pudding, which is a traditional dessert that everybody in Shanghai will eat during the Spring Festival. And not only this shopping area, take where I am, the Jing'an district as example, the district will be offering 4 rounds of coupons starting in the middle of January to give consumer more chance to shop during the Spring Festival. And citywide, about over 160 special activities will be held in town. So not only promotions, scenic spots, including the Band, Yuyuan, and Disneyland are expected to welcome a large number of tourists to come.
That was Chen Tong reporting. Now recapping today's headlines. Lebanon's caretaker prime minister says the country will uphold the ceasefire with Israel. Rebels claim control of Goma in the eastern DRC, forcing thousands to flee. And China is buzzing with festive energy as the Year of the Snake approaches in just 2 days' time. That's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a 1-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Mons Han, thank you for listening.